Good day out there to all my listeners, and I'd like to welcome you to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And I'm your host, Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And for those new listeners out there, just know that's also the title of my book, Is Your Way in Your Way. And we like to talk about topics related to what I say personal improvement, business improvement, or development. And at times, this will enable you to self-reflect. And I also say that I'm prayerful that these podcasts, at least one of these podcasts, will enable you to say, you know what, I think I think this is the issue. I think this is why I'm stuck. I think this is why, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but something's stopping me. I know I need to get out of a toxic relationship, but I'm stuck with that. I know that I need to move. I need to forgive somebody, just a gamut of things that is preventing you from living your best life on your terms. And while we're here living, we want to make sure that we're living our ordained purpose, whatever your gift is. So it's time for us to move forward and start doing the things that we know within our hearts or believe that this is something God would have us to do, however you're stuck. So today we're going to talk about a topic that is unbelievable to me. It's titled, What You May Not Know About PMDD or Perimenopause. Now, some of you say, well, what is PMDD? Well, we're going to find out. And the person that's going to talk to us about that's name is Chloe. And I say Jimenez, which is Spanish, Peters. And Chloe, I'd like to welcome you to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast.
Thank you, Cassandra. It's so cool to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way. I'm looking forward to diving in, guys, because this is a topic that I'm saying you probably don't even know about it or even know what it stands for. But before we delve into this, I want to read a little bit about Chloe so that you can get some, what I would call, understand her a little bit before we dive in. So Chloe is a transformational hypnotherapist and trauma-informed coach who helps women worldwide break free from the subconscious patterns behind PMDD, Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder, and we're going to elaborate on that, perimenopause, and the lingering effects of toxic relationships. Combining her medical background with a profound knowledge of the subconscious, Chloe specializes in rewiring the mind and nervous system to unlock true self-worth, inner peace, and fulfilling relationship. Intrigued by how Chloe transformed trauma into a success blueprint, this interview is going to reveal her unique approach to healing and empowerment, paving the way for a thriving, purpose-filled life. Wow, this is so cool. Hey, listeners, and I've experienced what she's going to talk about. So I know, like when I wrote my book, I said many of you will be able to see yourself in the book, but this time you're going to also see yourself in this podcast. So Chloe, before we let me ask you this: what was life prior to your journey? Before you went through your journey of heartbreak and healing, what was going on with you prior to that your heartbreak and healing? What happened?
So, well, I'd struggled with mental health issues since my teens. So actually, I didn't even know about PMDD back then. I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue at 15 years old, then clinical depression at 17, and they prescribed me antidepressants. And then I went to med school, and I was very much down that whole, the serotonin model, and it's, chemical imbalance. And I really took all of that on. And it wasn't until I was left by the I call him the sperm donor of my 3 children because he is absent, and that's what he now will remain as, the sperm donor. He left for a 23-year-old Swedish girl. He disappeared. I was pregnant, and I was absolutely heartbroken. And I just remember this day sitting on my green sofa watching my 2 baby boys under the age of 2, and just thinking, God, because I just couldn't sleep. I was a complete wreck, you know, obsessing over where he was, what they were doing, and just in denial, really just wanting my life back on track. And I was having these thoughts. And I thought, do you know what? You're doing this to yourself because you actually have choice over what to think, and you are choosing to go onto social media and look at what they're doing. And I realized that I was a victim of my own behavior. And I had this thought that went through my mind that was, who's going to want you? What will become of your life? Who's going to want you with 3 children? And right there, I was like, don't you dare. Because I realized I had choice, and I could see if I continued to believe that, the effect on my children would be catastrophic, that they would feel that they were a burden to my happiness. And so I went down a rabbit hole of learning about the subconscious mind and personal growth, and deciding that I had to become the best version of me. I had to, these kids had to know that they were enough, and they only had me to look at. And so I started to really study the subconscious mind and the laws of the universe and the rules of the mind. And then I came across this training for rapid transformational therapy, which is what I do now, the hypnotherapy.
Well, let me ask you, Chloe, real quick. Were you have you gone to medical school yet? Is all of this before?
Yeah. So I had gone to medical school and qualified as a dentist, because so I grew up with a dad who was like, you will be a doctor or a lawyer. And so I had my choice taken away from me. And actually, when I went to the subconscious root cause of the depression, I realized that it was because of that story I was hearing all the time. The child in me, my inner child, had concluded there's something wrong with you because he needs you to be this in order for you to be significant. And so I concluded that I was bad. There was something innately wrong with me, because I'd hear him say to my sister, well, you're going to be an actress. You could be this. And for me, I didn't have the choice. And so, and this is what we do, you know, we take on 95% of our beliefs by the time we're 7 years old. And that is our blueprint. And they're misperceptions of a child, right? They're conclusions. A child cannot think that their parent, you know, they don't have a logical, critical factor developed by then. So they're just concluding all the time. So trauma is not just what was done to you. Trauma is what wasn't done to you. You weren't loved unconditionally, or you didn't feel that you were loved unconditionally. And as a highly sensitive person, which 1 in 4 of us is, you see, that's what is genetic, this highly sensitive person's gene. And this goes across 100 species, even fruit flies. And in evolutionary terms, there's pros and cons to both. One is not more superior than the other. But if you are a highly sensitive person, you process things deeply, and you're more susceptible to these limiting beliefs, these trauma imprints. And actually just learning about the highly sensitive person is really validating. I ask my patients, my clients, to read about that, because it's very validating. You can understand yourself deeply when you realize.
So do you think, and I'm glad we're talking about this, because depression was always for many years taboo. And in some instances, it still is, and people do not like to talk about it or admit it. So what you're saying is, because you ruminated a lot on things because of your sensitivity in regard to your relationship, and then your stinking thinking as a child. For example, my dad wanted me to be a doctor, lawyer, but people told me what I was going to be, yet I never had I never really thought about what I wanted to be, but I thought I couldn't, because that's not what I was told. Do you think it's your thinking that causes that depression, if you think about it long enough, or is it something chemically in the brain?
So I will talk about depression all day long with you, Cassandra, because that's my speciality, is depression. Okay. And when you've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people for the same thing, you start to see a pattern in the subconscious blueprint. So I can tell you the typical beliefs under depression, for anger, for anxiety. So with depression, that serotonin model was never proven. It was just a hypothesis that was never proven, but of course it suits big pharma to carry on promoting that. With depression, it's the ultimate rejection of self, and it is a belief, like if you grew up with parents not being able to attune to you, not being it. So my story, that's personal, but I formed the belief that I was bad. There was something innately wrong with me. And this is what happens. These people, these children, these young children, because nobody could attune to them when they were in a moment of need, that's, or they had parents who went, if you don't stop crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about. And so the conclusion of the child, there's something wrong with me. I'm bad. I'm wrong. I'm innately wrong. And so these are the subconscious beliefs beneath the depression, and depression is a freeze response. So when we're talking about the nervous system, we have fight or flight. Let's say that's the amber light. In fight or flight, you will find anxiety, you will find rage, anger, which is really typical in PMDD. And then when you reach your threshold of fight or flight, your nervous system comes to protect you further, because you can't be in that state for too long, and you go into freeze response. Here you will find the depression, you will find dissociation. And it's just your nervous system protecting you and moving you into this new state of survival. Because of your perception of danger, right? And the perception comes from your subconscious blueprint. I am perceiving that I may be rejected. As humans, we have to belong to survive. That's number one. To belong, we have to belong in order to survive. A human child cannot survive without the parents, without the caregivers keeping them alive. So it's our priority to survive. In order to survive, we need to belong. We need to be the good girl. We need to, because that's how we parent conditionally. Oh, if I'm a good girl, then I feel loved. If I don't do that, then I feel rejected. I must never do that again. And so we're being programmed all the time.
Okay. So trauma is just not about assault, or trauma is it sounds like it's a lot of things. When you talk about what is your definition of trauma? Trauma is something that can happen in your childhood, or explain how you define trauma, because I think people see it differently. Some people do.
Well, because the general understanding is those things that we call big T trauma, things that happen to you that shouldn't have happened to you.
Right. Okay.
I'm not really comfortable with categorizing trauma as big T and small t. So trauma in Greek means wound. And the thing is, we all have different sensitivities. We have a different capacity from one another to hold certain events. So the trauma is not the event, actually. That's a traumatic event. The trauma is what occurs in the body. It's the glitch in the nervous system, the glitch in your subconscious blueprint. So you're being splintered from your wholeness. You're forming these limiting beliefs, these lies about yourself, like, I don't matter. I'm not significant. I must never trust myself again. I'm not safe. And a child, because a child is so in the present moment, they tag every belief with, and it will always be this way. And so we go through life until we do this work and we absolutely rectify the blueprint to the truth. And that's life-changing. So we're actually just kind of free-falling through life, not understanding why things are not happening for us, getting in our own way, because we're functioning on software that you created in your formative years with your child's mind. And when I do think that it mostly comes from childhood. Of course, we can have traumatic events in adulthood, But I think that how you react to that depends on your childhood programming. If you look at soldiers that come back from war, 20% of them come back with PTSD. Now that makes me think that those 20% perhaps had childhood trauma that exacerbated, brought up the system is perceiving that. Chronically activated.
So, okay, so let's talk about PMDD. And I want to also talk about the perimenopause. What's the difference? Now, as women, many of us know about the menopause. If you've not been there, you're going to go. So let's talk about what PMDD. I said what it was, but what does that mean? Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder versus perimenopause.
So premenstrual dysphoric disorder is like PMS on steroids. So, I mean, it's experienced differently by each woman, actually. And you don't have to have a diagnosis to do this work. You know, I didn't even know I had it, and most people don't. And I realized that a lot of my clients were coming to me and saying, I don't know if this is PMDD or it's the perimenopause. Well, my answer to that is it just doesn't matter. You've got symptoms that you want to be free of. So we go to the subconscious root of it. And then they were saying, when they were coming out of my signature program, well, why don't you do a program for perimenopause? And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. It's the same work. So my program, Wounds into Wings, is for depression, perimenopause, and PMDD. So with PMDD, for me, for instance, now I know what it is. I learned about it in my training because there was a masterclass on it from another graduate who had discovered that she healed herself in her training by having sessions on herself. And I watched this masterclass and I was like, oh my God, that's what I had from being 14 years old, from the onset of menstruation. I had it. Now, it's not the same for everybody. Some women have it just come to them when they're, after childbirth, they start experiencing it, or they experience it later in life. Now, I just see it as a calling to expand your potential, right? It's a calling to heal the past that is keeping you stuck.
The PMDD is the calling, you saying?
I mean, any of these diseases, these disorders that we,
disease, right? Okay.
Yeah, the disease in your body. It's like, your body is saying no. Your body is trying to get your attention. It's trying to get you to look at it. And so that's how I see it. Now with PMDD, it's horrendous. We have the symptoms are suicide ideation, complete shutdown. Women can't hold down a job because of this. They can't keep relationships. Marriages end because of it, because it's like Jekyll and Hyde. It's like they've been possessed. And it's horrendous because for half the month, they're not them. And these women tend to be the most empathetic, the most creative, caring women, and they're experiencing this. And when they do this work and they let go of those symptoms and they replace those glitches in their subconscious with the truth about them, the new empowering opposites, their whole life starts to change. This is why I call it Wounds into Wings now, because it wasn't always that. Because it wasn't just healing their wings, they were transforming their relationships, they were getting pay rises, they were creating magic with their lives, coming up with ideas for, one lady I just finished working with, she was working in a bar when I started working with her at the beginning of my 8-week program. And when she came out, she already had a business idea to be, to do landscaping and garden architecture. And it was like, that's what made her, that's what lit her up. But she'd never given herself permission to have what she desired, because it wasn't, the beliefs were, what I want doesn't matter, it's not important. And these are childhood beliefs that are keeping us stuck. And your subconscious mind will show you, whatever we go to the symptom of, your subconscious mind absolutely has the answer. And the problem is, your subconscious mind is running the show. It's running all the processes in your body. And you're running from your subconscious mind 95% of the day. It's your autopilot. So you can consciously desire something, but if your subconscious programming says something else, the mind can't hold conflicting beliefs. It's not going to happen.
So the subconscious could say, I'm not good enough, right? Because of what somebody said to me back in my childhood. Or the subconscious mind can say, I'll never be this because my mom said you'll never be nothing. I've actually heard individuals arguing with their children and say, you stupid somebody. I mean, just crazy stuff that they'll say. And I'm not quite sure if they understand the impact that they will have as they get older. And because we're just talking, well, I know what, hormones are powerful. Let's talk about hormones. And we all have them. Men have them too. But ours, what is the estrogen, the progesterone, the testosterone? Why are they so powerful?
Well, we women are cyclical beings, but we live in a man's world, and we are expected to be, doing. And also when we become mothers as well, because mothering is a masculine energy, right? But we're women, and we've kind of abandoned the very fact that we have cyclical needs, and through the month we need to be honoring those needs. They're seasons of a month, and we have to really honor that and understand that when that luteal phase comes, that shift in hormones is causing us to look inward, to do some introspection. So it's like the assessment mode. And when you have these glitches in your subconscious mind, you're faced to feel, because your subconscious mind is the feeling mind. All of your emotions and your feelings come from the subconscious mind. Emotion overrides logic every time. And so when you're at your luteal phase and you're going inward, because this is the time where you're supposed to reassess and grow and look where we need to make changes in our lives, but society it's not conducive to that. I think we're changing this now. I think we're waking up to the fact that we have to honor our cyclical ways and look after ourselves. But this time of introspection and this time of going inwards into assessment mode, when you're faced with it's like a truth serum, this hormone shift. It's like lifting the veil on your past pain, on your past trauma that needs to be alchemized. It needs to be transformed. And it's showing you. It's showing you that we're like hating on our hormones because we've been programmed to hate on our hormones. We've been programmed to, need to keep going, need to keep doing in a very masculine way. So actually, we are very magical beings, I believe. We have immense power, and we've kind of had that taken away from us. That little secret that actually, the pain that comes, the feelings that come up in those days, you need to look at those. What's that about? Because that, you need to transform that. You need to look at the root of that and then turn it on its head, because it's not true. And you can change, you can absolutely swap that, reframe that limiting belief, but it's showing you.
Okay. Are there quizzes or tests to show whether you have PMDD? How does the individual know they have PMDD, or like you say, perimenopause, even though you said they're kind of the same thing? Right? It's kind of
with the perimenopause, I guess you would. I mean, it really, for me, for the work that I do, it really doesn't matter, but you can get your hormones checked. I'm hearing, though, that it's really challenging to get a test for your hormones. And actually, as far as I'm concerned, it really doesn't matter. We just need to get to the root of this stuff that's coming up for you. So with the PMDD, a bit like any other issue, there's a list of symptoms and you would tick off, I'm suffering with that. I'm suffering with rage. I'm suffering. People, in your relationships in those days, people tend to feel kind of confused about their feelings towards their partner. They don't want to be touched. They want to isolate. It's like a war against yourself. Well, it actually is. You're going inwards and you're seeing all these horrible, or experiencing these horrendous beliefs about yourself, that you're wrong, that you're bad, that you're not safe. And the relationship issue, I mean, that goes back to, you know, how you felt, how safe you felt around your caregivers, right? And so when you're in your most sensitive days and all this stuff is coming to the surface, the safest thing for you to do naturally is isolate. So there's nothing wrong with you. It's just a healthy response to what you're experiencing, but it's still alive in your body, and it doesn't have to be. We can get to the root of it. We can transform it, and you set yourself free. And you understand, because I don't only do the transformational hypnotherapy, we also do polyvagal work to reshape your nervous system. We learn cognitive psychology to get in control of your thoughts, and positive psychology. So we're doing the conscious work and the subconscious
work.
Really, you know, understand how your brilliant organism is working for you, and to continue using these tools as a way of being in your life.
Yeah. And I like when you said there's nothing wrong with you. You know how, you know, I remember, you know, and as I mentioned before we started, how I went through menopause in my late 30s, and I was devastated. Like, what in the, why am I, you know, so young? And because I always hear about it when people are, I don't know, 40, 50, 60s. And I'm like, wow, what is going on with that? And so it's kind of like, it's like I did think something was wrong, you know, and for them to say it, I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened to me? Why am I like that? And then I go introspectively, like maybe because I did this, or maybe because I worried a lot and my hormones trickled, or just something. It always has to be, if it's not going the way we want it, or whether we can't control it, we think something's wrong.
That's it. Yeah.
Right.
And this is why understanding how your organism works is so important. The nervous system work, the polyvagal work, because what we do is, because of this frontal cortex, the neocortex, when we experience a stress response like fight or flight, we start to judge it. We fear it, which then it makes it worse, the anxiety. We drive ourselves into a panic attack because we're not understanding, this is my nervous system perceiving there's danger. Now, what am I perceiving? Fear of judgment. Well, I validate me. I'm not a dependent child anymore, right? So when we can understand the subconscious programming, because we've made it conscious, and we have the tools to bring our nervous system back to homeostasis, and understand that actually our nervous system is always working for us, not against us. And we have, you know, our emotions, our behaviors, what we're experiencing, this is changing your physiology at every moment in the day. You know, your genes are switching on and off according to what you need at every moment in the day. This is epigenetics.
Yeah.
And so your reactions to things are going to change your hormonal levels in your body. That's just how it is, because your body's incredibly intelligent. I need to adapt to this situation. I mean, that's what these trauma imprints are, right? They're adaptations to the environment. Just like when a plant is short of, let's say, copper, its leaves will go yellow in order to survive. It's adapting to its environment, just as we have to do, and our nervous system and our cells are incredibly intelligent, and the subconscious mind is running the show. So it's understanding is power, and understanding what you can do, what tools you can pull from, and really just looking. Like, anytime I have something, I'm like, this feeling's been here for a few days now, and I don't know what this is. I'm going to have a session. I'm going to get to the subconscious root of it, and I'm going to alchemize it, because I know it's the next level of growth. It's my next level of expansion. And this is what we're here for. We're here to evolve, sadly the human species is de-evolving, but
Right.
we've got to do the work. We've got to do the work for us,
Right.
for our kids. And we've only got one life in this body. So we've got to make the most of it. And that was my thing in that moment on the green sofa. I've got to become the best version of me. I've got to find my purpose.
Right.
If not for me, for them, because they depend on me.
Right. Right. So it sounds like you got to a point where enough is enough. It's like I'm sick of this. And sometimes I believe that's what it takes. And even when I think about what I've gone through and thinking about my book and my emotions and why it took me so long to write the book, I'm like, okay, I'm sick and tired of feeling like I'm feeling. So it's time for me to get help. And when I say help, what I did was went on a self-discovery journey. Okay, because I'm not sure what it is that I need, but it's just like this particular podcast. There's some listeners out there struggling, or either have some friends that are struggling, like, you know what, maybe I do have PMDD, or yeah, I am depressed, or yeah, I'm going to go to the doctor and get some antidepressants, and so the work that you do, does it mitigate having antidepressants or not? Or you think, because I want to hear the tools you use to help people get out of their self or get out of their way to start living their full potential. So what are your tools, and do you believe in the antidepressants, or is it both?
Well, I was put on antidepressants at 17, and I'm not against them in that they can be life-saving when you're really rock bottom, but that for me is like putting earplugs in, right? Where it's like putting earplugs in and not actually extracting the wisdom from what you're being shown. And many women I work with say, I just can't be on these antidepressants anymore. I feel numb. I have no sex drive. I have to do something. I can't be on them anymore. And my point is, with the work that we do, this work makes them futile. I mean, the point is to do this work, and it's rapid and it is super effective. And this is like turning your wounds into wings. And so it's to make them unnecessary. I mean, my mum, for instance, she was on antidepressants. She had an RTT session with me. Never again. She's and this is my own mum, and I'm working with hundreds of women. My mum, bless her, she was on antidepressants for most of her life, really struggling. So I'm not here to say to anybody, right, now we've done the session, you can come off the antidepressants.
Right.
That is something you work with your doctor to wean yourself off them if that's what you want to do. But my point is that the work that we do just makes them unnecessary, actually, because we've gone to the subconscious route, and in one session you can be free from depression. It's you get to go in there in like the hypnotic brain states that, by the way, are a completely natural brain state that you are in and out of every day, because a lot of people worry about the hypnosis thing because, well, we've grown up watching stage hypnotists making you cluck like a chicken and bark like a dog and do things that you wouldn't normally do. So people think I'm going to be out of control. It's just like a meditation. You're just more in control. You're more aware. You can access memories that maybe you couldn't access with your conscious mind. Some people go to the womb. Some people go to being born. Some people access memories that they'd completely forgotten. And whatever your subconscious mind shows you, that's absolutely what you need to look at. And we will, you go back, say the first thing we do in this 2-hour session is regression. So you'll go back, your subconscious mind will show you 3 or 4 scenes from your childhood that are absolutely to do with the root cause, and you will, and through that regression, I extract the beliefs. What's the feeling? I'm 7 years old, I'm sitting on the porch and I'm feeling shame, I'm feeling bad, and believing that nobody loves me, that must mean that I'm unlovable, I'm unlikable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
These are the beliefs. And so, and across those 3-4 scenes that your subconscious mind shows us, you get to see the collection, the paradigm, the set of beliefs that have been running the show. And so for the rest of those 2 hours, we do all the reframing, we do the inner child work. And doing this work in hypnotic brain states is so powerful, because it's like going into this portal of infinite resources, and it's really quite spiritual as well, and just reconnecting with yourself and accepting yourself as lovable, as likable, as more than enough, and realizing that was always the truth.
So this approach to hypnotherapy is the approach that enables your patients to break free.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Have you ever gone through, and you say your sessions are about 2 hours, right? And what you said about your mom or another patient, like you can go through a session and you'll be done, right? But then some people, it may take longer. Is that correct? More than 2 hours, and they have to come back another day and redo this again?
So my sessions are 2 hours long, but after that session, you will go away with a 15-minute recording with all the new empowering beliefs pertinent to that session. And you must listen to that for 21 to 30 days. Every day when you go to bed, you'll do the self-hypnosis to rewire the subconscious mind, because the mind learns in 2 ways: in hypnotic brain states and by repetition. Children are in hypnotic brain states until they're 7 years old. They are in hypnotic brain states. That's why they absorb things like sponges. And so that's how the mind learns. So I use 1 session per symptom. So normally if somebody comes to me with depression and anxiety, I go, right, we're going to go to the root cause of the depression. I want to get you out of freeze response first. So we go to the root cause of the depression, and after that session, it's just so different for them. And I would say after a day or 2, they already feel free. The depression has gone, but they're still listening to the recording, and they're still working through the conscious lessons that I provide them in my program. And then at the end of those 3 or 4 weeks, we move on to the second session. So they have all of those days consolidate the new learnings and rewire and consolidate. And then we tend to move into whatever's left. So I don't often say, well, for the second session, we'll do anxiety, because we don't know. The anxiety might also be gone with that first session. So we just see what's left. Sometimes people say, do you know what? I don't know what to work on. I mean, that's 5% of people. I don't know what to work on. I go, well, let's work on abundance blocks. Let's work on life purpose, But normally what we do is we go to a fight or flight symptom like rage, like anxiety, and then we can get you out of the fight or flight. And then again, they get a new recording with the beliefs pertinent to that session that need to replace the old ones that we pulled out with the reframing and the inner child work. So then they listen to that new recording for another 3 to 4 weeks. And by the end of the program, they say, I'm worried that this isn't going to last.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask that.
They go, I'm worried if this feels too good to be true. I'm worried it's not going to last. And I say, this is just the beginning of a whole new way of being, because now you're going to build and build and build with the tools that you have. You're just going to keep expanding exponentially. I mean, it's mad being on this journey, how quickly we're growing.
Wow, this is like it's like it could be a miracle. I mean, if you think about, there's what do they say? Is it 1 in 10 individuals that are on antidepressants? I mean, it's huge of individuals that are on that. So if they knew about Chloe and the work that you do, it's like, well, why don't more people know about you? Or either you're going to say, well, that's why I'm doing all these podcasts. And then I read some information. You have a lot of testimonials of individuals that have worked with you that talk about how much better their life is, that they are actually reaching what they believe their full potential. You've even said that they can become a magnet for happy and good relationships, and even if they're suffering from hormones. So this approach you have, you know how individuals will see somebody and say something about you, it's like, I don't know what it is, but I feel like I'm drawn to you. I've had people say that it's just something. And then, I've even heard doctors say when your estrogen levels are up, you attract more. I've heard that before, like, really? But what you say is they become a magnet. Loving relationships, harmonious loving relationships. So this approach also, once they're somewhat cleared from this, they attract who they are. Or tell us about that, Agnes.
Yeah, so Cassandra, I actually ended up becoming a narcissistic abuse specialist because I was seeing the pattern, these beautiful souls that were coming to me with all these horrible limiting beliefs and trauma imprints. They also had been attracting toxic relationships. And of course, why do we attract these toxic partners? Because of the childhood beliefs we have about ourselves. So it's no coincidence. We are, what we believe tends to be realized. And so we do become a magnet for people that, benefit from our limiting beliefs. And so when you transform, imagine if you've got beliefs like, I don't matter, what I want doesn't matter, I'm unlovable. What kind of relationship are you going to tolerate? And so when you turn those beliefs on their head and you're showing up like, my God, there's nothing I have to do to be lovable. Actually, I was born lovable. I'm enough. I'm more than enough. You're not going to tolerate or even be interested or look at anybody who thinks less of you than you do. And so it's only natural that you start manifesting all of these amazing things in your life that you hadn't even dreamt were possible. So it goes down to the blueprint, the subconscious blueprint.
Right. And I hear a lot about generational curses. I've talked to people that say, well, my mom had a child when she was 17, and so did her mom, and then so did her mom. It's like, so we're just cursing. It's like it's okay because that's how my family is. But if it, like you're saying, if this is what you believe, I think I saw something you said, if your what did you say? Your thoughts. You had a saying I was reading. What was that saying about how you feel if you do this? Say that.
Your beliefs create your thoughts. Your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings dictate the behavior. They dictate the action you take, and that creates your personal reality. You've got to go to the root. What's at the beginning of it? The subconscious beliefs.
Sorry, everyone. That's Max. A lot of my listeners know about Max, my little puppy.
Max, you're going to set my puppy off.
Oh my gosh, he was so good, and he's not even in the room. He just wants you to know he's here. Yeah.
Yeah. And talking about, like my mum, for instance, I noticed my mum, she has a belief that life is hard.
Right. I'm sorry, listeners. Oh my gosh. Okay. And that's your mom believes that.
And I get really frustrated with that because I'm like, that's a belief, and beliefs are yours to change. You can carry on believing that life is hard, but I'm not taking that on. I'm letting that go. I'm choosing that everything is doable, that everything comes to serve me, and that, there's growth from everything. The nature of life is to challenge us. Our job is to grow from it.
Yeah.
Life, its nature is to challenge. That's it. And our job is to just grow from it. So evolve, be able to hold more, and actually do the nervous system work so that our nervous system is not going into a physiological state that is going to create illness.
Wow, that's amazing.
Stress state, I was like, oh my goodness, the pathways that I am activating physiologically are going to create illness. Like, this is how illness is caused. I have to take control of my actions and my thoughts. How do I do that? I've got to change the belief system.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. Wow. Floyd, this conversation was awesome. And it certainly provides my listeners insights on why they are stuck. I mean, it could be different things. However, but just think, are they having these symptoms you talked about, the depression, I'm not good enough, all this thought patterns, or are they in the menopausal stage or the premenopausal stage? And like we said in the beginning, what you may not have known about PMDD or perimenopause, as you indicated, it's one and the same. I mean, let's just, it's kind of like when they talk about dementia and what's it? And the doctor said, well, to me, it's the same. It's an umbrella, trying to figure out, do they have dementia? And then it's called something else. And then they said, well, it's all the same.
Yeah, I mean, the labels are useful. They can feel validating. But for me, with the work that I do, it doesn't matter. We're working at the root cause of the symptom. And, perimenopause is showing you're being shown, those months or years running up to the menopause, you're being shown what you need to alchemize, what you need to look at in order to expand and really, be who you're meant to be. It's screaming out for heal. So PMDD is PMS on steroids. You can have it from your period. Perimenopause symptoms, they'll obviously show up in the months running up to the menopause and the years. So it really doesn't matter. We go to the root cause of, I've worked with breast cancer. We go to the emotional root cause of whatever you are struggling with, and we just transform the subconscious blueprint. So yeah, you don't need the label, because it's your feelings are the most real thing you have. You're a human. Your feelings are real. You don't need a doctor to say, oh, well, you've got this. How's that useful? So that they can give you a pill. But that's benefiting who?
Yes. Right. Yeah. So we have to be careful what we're thinking, right? With our past and our blinders that we have on the things that people told us, those limiting beliefs and all of that. Wow.
And we're not even conscious of them, actually. That's the thing. And you actually spoke about rumination. So yeah, the rumination tends to take us deeper into the depression. Ruminating over things. We do that, don't we? We cause shame. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. The rumination. And then the anxiety typically is worrying about what could happen, about the future. But those thoughts come from a subconscious blueprint about your safety in this world. And that's where they're coming from.
Wonderful. Floyd, how can my listeners get in touch with you?
Well, Instagram, I am on Instagram. And if you would like to come and have a chat with me, I offer 15-minute free discovery calls where we can start to map out your healing journey. So you can book that call via my website at wingsinToWings.com. Or you can DM me on Instagram if you're feeling ready to start this amazing transformational work and become the best version of you rapidly, getting to the root cause. So yeah, connect with me on Instagram and book a call with me. I'd be delighted.
Wow, you were great. I definitely know what PMDD means and the perimenopause, and I'm getting a better understanding in regards to our nervous system and our thinking. And I think many of us already know that our thoughts have so much to do with what's going on in our lives. It's just that many of us don't want to do the work. And you didn't get like this yesterday. So don't think you're going to get out of it tomorrow, because we're like a microwave society. We want it right now. But yet one of these things these podcasts have been doing is providing resources and giving individuals insight and another way of thinking about things. It opens them up to what's really out here in the world, and it's their decision. I think having your choice is a gift to me. So it's their decision to whether this is the route they want to go in. Because I definitely believe that we're all here for a reason. And it's tough to figure out what the reason is when you're stuck. Like I just can't get out of this cycle that I'm in. I can't even think straight. I can't even focus. And based on the work that you do, you are definitely a resource. I see you as a blessing for those who are open and want to get better, I would say. So I'd like to thank you, my listeners. I know you've enjoyed this, and I ask that if you have friends, family, acquaintances that this would resonate with them and it could be a blessing to them, please share it. Please share this podcast with them. It's also going to be on every podcast platform. And I just want to thank Chloe for being on my podcast. It's just great. And for my listeners, I always say bye for now. God bless you. And also listen to this podcast more than once. It's okay to get it in your psyche and hear it over and over again, because I'm certain it'll be a blessing. And Chloe, I have to say bye for now. And again, thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast, Is Your Way in Your Way. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you, Cassandra.